Here's what you're looking for in a person that is coming to minister. Number one, and most importantly, they have to be committed to God. The most successful times that I've helped people restore their marriages is when they didn't even like each other maybe, but they had a commitment to God. And if that's the only thing they have in common, you can work with that. They also need to be willing to allow God to do and say what he wants. By the time that you get people, oftentimes they're in such pain that they have issues with trusting other people, trusting God. And so they're going to have to reach in and try to trust God all that they can. Number two, they're not going to be able to see clearly. They're processing from a broken heart. And in Matthew chapter 7, it talks about getting the mote out of your own eye before you get the splinter out of your brother's eye. For this reason, the individual's going to work on themselves first. Doesn't matter what else that other spouse has done. They have to, number one, be committed to God, and number two, be willing for God to work on them first. That can seem unfair at times, but unless you get your own vision fixed, unless you get your heart fixed, you're not going to be able to see the situation clearly. So when someone comes in, it's like, okay, are you willing to allow to look at yourself? And if they are like, no, it's all his fault, or no, it's her, if she would just change. Now that's an indicator you've got problems, or they have problems. If we just had more money, if they would just do X, Y, Z, if I had just married someone else. They're pointing out here. And yeah, there may be some issues out there, but you want to start in here. That's where you're going to begin with allowing God to heal the brokenness. The brokenness didn't happen overnight. They probably brought it into their marriage. So what we're going to do is allow God to clean up all the dross, all the abuses, all of the abandonment, all the unforgiveness, all of the wounds. So you're going to start on the person first. After that, what's going to happen is God's going to, let's say you have you have a wife and the husband is like, I don't want any part of what you're doing, getting ministry. Okay. That spouse, that woman comes in and she begins to work on herself. Number one, God's going to begin working on her and he's going to notice that. If the marriage doesn't work out, she's coming from a whole slate. She's getting healed anyway. If the marriage does work out, he's got a brand new wife. And oftentimes God will turn that. So you work on that person first, no matter if they are the guilty one or not. Listen, there are people that have been lied on, cheated on, and there's just trauma that needs to be healed. And when they focus on self first, they can work on lining themselves up with the Lord and working on that healing. I remember ministering to a woman whose husband was an egghead. I loved him. I didn't have any bias toward him, but man, he was just not physically abusive, but very selfish with the finances, selfish, and the wife had to do everything, and he was the big bad, I'm the leader of the house. Jesus said so. Jesus never leads like that. So I don't know why people that are controlling and manipulating try to say I'm leading like Jesus when it looks nothing like Jesus. But anyway, so all I could see really was the fact she's trying hard. But what's happened is she has gotten saved since they got married. God's been working on her. So what I see is this rejuvenated person. She's kind. She's praying for him. She's coming back at home instead of leaving him. But when we get into ministering to self, the Lord begins to bring up things that she did early in the marriage that sowed bitterness into her husband. I would have never believed it. That's how I got this lesson where you need to just trust God. It takes two. And so as the Lord healed her, she started repenting for on their wedding day, she said something horrible and had forgotten all about it, which probably had caused some of his behaviors. So anyway, another thing when you're ministering, you've gotten someone good to minister to, is they want healing or they want God above their spouse. They want healing above their spouse. Some people are like, I'm just going to go to this. If it doesn't work, if he doesn't come back to me, I'll just quit. They're going to quit anyway. My mother always says that someone who says they're changed actually will change. They ministered once to someone whose husband was an avid golfer, and his spouse was lonely, and they asked him, he's like, I'll do whatever it takes for my marriage to work. And they said, would you give up golf for 3 months? To which he responded, no way. To which the wife responded with tears, because it wasn't the fact that he wasn't willing to give up 3 months. It was the fact that golf was more important than she was. So selflessness is going to come into this. If you have a husband or a wife that is willing to do whatever it takes, grab onto them, and they don't want, if you have someone who wants to do whatever it takes, they are going to do the work that it takes. They're going to be in there for long term. If they're pointing and accusing and refusing to do what it takes, it's going to be pulling them like pulling some heavy weight up a hill. And as a minister, that's just hard to do. So they may not be able to climb the hill yet, but you can work with someone who will do whatever it takes to change whatever habits it takes. There's a lot of selfish people. It can be a heartache to walk with someone, because you're going to start, like, if just one comes to you, you're going to start seeing changes, and other people may not yet, and they may become kinder and softer and start hearing from God, yet the spouse hasn't changed yet. The goal is not to change the spouse. The goal is to line up with the word. The goal is to get healed. The goal is to go into the presence of the Lord so that healing can take place. And yes, oftentimes the marriages will result in that, but that can't be the goal. The goal has to be, God, heal me, restore me, clear out my thinking, heal my broken heart, get whatever is in my vision out that I'm not seeing properly out. If I'm hearing wrong and being twisted, get that out. And if you do those things, if you have that kind of a person that wants God above everything else, that's willing to take full responsibility and trust in him to fix anything, you got you a good person. Next time, I'll talk about how to actually start ministering to someone that has a broken marriage.